chosen ones. The winds that once whispered through ancient sanctuaries have stirred again. Sand-covered prophecies, sealed in tombs older than memory, now breathe your name. You were never meant to live an ordinary life. Before empires rose and fell, before languages were carved into stone, a solitary figure cloaked in light stood at the edge of time. And you were there. The divine oracle, hidden from the eyes of kings and cloaked in the fire of heaven, opened her mouth only once in 3,000 years. Her final words were not thunder. They were your presence. She saw you. She described no crown, no scepter, no army, but a stillness so holy it broke the alignment of stars above the Temple Mount. The time has come, she said, and with that, her breath left her body. But her message did not die. It spread like a whisper too sacred for the ears of the unchosen. It etched itself into the minds of the watchers who never sleep. And when your footsteps fell into alignment with the hidden grid buried beneath the city of stone, a ripple struck the vault of silence. That vault cracked. They are listening now. Old governments don't speak of what they've seen, not in press briefings, not in redacted files, but the silence in their eyes. That speaks. When satellites blinked and ancient symbols pulsed beneath the Vatican archives, the same symbols that match the pattern inside your blood, a decision was made in private. You must not be allowed to remember. Not fully. Not yet. But memory is rising, and so are you. You are not a symbol. You are not an accident. You are a signal wrapped in skin. And the moment you awaken, the moment you fully remember the promise buried inside your soul, the barriers fall, the veil thins, the war shifts. The oracle saw it not as a prophecy, but a countdown. The countdown ends with your decision. There is no going back from here. The pillars are shaking. The names are being rewritten. The fire is almost visible again. The cave had no name. No map led to it. Covered by centuries of shifting stone and guarded by silence, it waited for one presence alone. When the air shifted that day, and the dust along the cliff edge spiraled upward against gravity, the gatekeeper knew. You had arrived. Not with fanfare or storm, but with that unmistakable hum, the resonance the ancients feared and adored. The threshold was not marked by walls, but by energy, an invisible line that rejected all others. When your foot crossed it, the chamber awakened. Inside, the walls were alive with heatless light. Symbols older than Hebrew, older than Sumerian, pulsed in steady rhythm with your heartbeat. One glyph flickered the moment your shadow touched it. It had waited. Your presence wasn't just welcome here. It was required. Every failed expedition, every scholar who vanished trying to breach this tomb, had failed for one reason. You were the key. And now, the chamber breathed again. A stone table rose from the floor without sound. Upon it, not gold or jewels, but a strip of worn linen bound in waxed string. As your hand reached out, the string unraveled on its own. Inside was a message in a script no living linguist could decipher, yet your mind heard the meaning clearly. It didn't arrive in words, but memory. Not your memory, but one that felt older than your body. The ink wasn't ink. It shimmered like liquid time. And beneath that first message was a line you couldn't ignore. When the wind returns to Horeb, so shall the flame. In that moment, the air grew heavy. The glyphs along the walls flared once and dimmed. Something deeper within the mountain stirred. Not metaphor, not myth, movement, echoes, machinery, or bones, or both. Whatever slept beneath that chamber now knew you were here, and it was not pleased. The structure shivered, not from age, but from attention. You weren't alone anymore. And then your breath caught. A second strip of linen revealed itself beneath the first. This one bore your true name, the one you've never spoken, the one even your reflection cannot pronounce. You weren't just seen. You were summoned. There are scrolls hidden in places no mortal was ever meant to reach. One of them, woven from light and sealed in a casing of celestial bone, lay dormant beneath the ruins of the first temple. It was not guarded by force, but by paradox. The scroll could not be read unless your soul had once touched the eternal fire. It did not respond to scholars or priests, but only to the frequency of one life form, you. And when your frequency rippled through the holy lattice surrounding that ancient ruin, the seal quivered and fell open like a sigh that had waited for millennia. The scroll did not contain history. It contained activation. As it unfurled, it illuminated the chamber, not with flame, but with memory so sharp it cut the darkness. The words rearranged themselves as your eyes scanned the first line. You weren't reading them. They were reading you. One by one, they aligned to match the architecture of your soul. Names of stars you've never heard whispered themselves into your thoughts. The ink twisted midair and formed a symbol so sacred it had only been seen once, in the inner veil of the Holy of Holies, where no man dared linger. That symbol matched the birthmark behind your right shoulder. A name appeared then, yours, not the one given by family, but the name older than languages, the one sealed in sound when the foundations of the heavens were laid, and when it appeared, time fractured briefly. Devices monitoring seismic activity in the region registered nothing, yet every compass within a mile spun out of control. On a satellite feed rerouted through 5 restricted networks, a Vatican analyst whispered the word appearing on screen. He has been identified. But it wasn't just the Vatican. A secure AI system housed beneath Jerusalem registered your name as a high-priority anomaly. It did not understand why. It simply labeled you unquantifiable, unauthorized, unrepeatable. The Vatican froze the feed. The scroll's contents disappeared. But it was too late. The seal had opened. The name had been spoken. Across the ocean, in a room lined with relics never shown to the public, a blind man trembled. His eyes had never worked. But in that moment, he whispered the same phrase the oracle had once uttered while staring at eternity, through veiled eyes. When the oracle exhaled for the final time, the temple's flame did not flicker. It expanded, stretching toward the heavens, as if trying to grasp something unseen. Her body collapsed, but her spirit had already crossed dimensions. The scribes who witnessed it said her final breath shimmered in the air, like mist caught in a divine wind. They captured it in an obsidian vial, sealing it behind layers of sacred geometry, believing it might hold more than just the remnants of life. Centuries later, that vial resurfaced during an excavation beneath a ruined monastery. Its seal remained intact, until you passed within 12 feet of it. The moment you drew near, the vial cracked, not violently, but reverently. A sound emerged, a tone too low for human ears, yet deeply felt by every soul present. The archaeologists froze. One dropped to his knees and wept without knowing why. The mist spiraled upward and took form, not a face, not a voice, but a presence. It hovered, vibrating between realms, as if caught between an ancient message and the body it waited to reach. The recording devices malfunctioned. Clocks stuttered. Everything living held its breath. The echo that emerged was not language. It was declaration. And within it, buried beneath waves of holy resonance, was the unmistakable signature of Yeshua's voice. Not a phrase, not a sermon, but a single word. Spoken not to a crowd or a king, but to you. The word was not recorded. It was encoded in your bloodstream. Something awakened in that instant. A memory you'd never had flashed behind your eyes. Sand. Fire. A man standing by the sea, looking into your soul, as if he'd been waiting. The oracle's last breath had preserved this moment, not as prophecy, but as convergence. What Yeshua whispered within that final echo wasn't for the world. It was a key, and when it touched your spirit, the seal that bound your deeper self trembled. You were no longer just a visitor in this mystery. You were the continuity. But just as the resonance grew louder, it suddenly stopped. The vial, now empty, shattered completely and turned to dust. One word remained on the stone table where it had rested, not etched by tools, but burned by divine fire. That word pulsed as if alive, as if waiting to be read again. Deep within the catacombs of a forgotten mountain range, a council of elders once met in secret. They were not kings, not priests, not men hungry for power, but guardians. Each bore a mark etched into their skin during an ancient ritual that has no name. These marks were not symbols. They were coordinates, vibrating with the memory of a future not yet arrived. At the heart of their last gathering, one sentence echoed through the stone chamber. They will return when the flame walks. None of them understood it at the time. They believed it referred to a celestial event, a rare alignment, or maybe the return of a sacred comet. But as the years turned to centuries, and the council scattered into myth, the phrase became a curse among the secret orders that descended from them. Whenever unexplained fires moved against the wind, or unburned footprints appeared inside scorched temples, whispers would rise again. The flame is walking. That phrase was recently rediscovered in a scroll hidden behind the inner wall of an ancient observatory. The ink used was alive, shifting under ultraviolet light, reacting violently to electromagnetic waves, but it only responded fully when you were near. When your hand hovered above it, the scroll glowed, not from light, but from memory, as if your presence reignited its original source. The glyphs shifted, revealing more of the prophecy. Lines unseen by historians, symbols that spoke of a singular arrival, not plural, not they. You, the phrase had been mistranslated. It was never, "they will return." It was always singular. He will return when the flame walks outside. Lightning struck ground in a perfect circle, not once, thrice. Each strike spaced by exactly 33 seconds. Surveillance drones lost signal simultaneously. Time slowed, not just in perception, But physically, according to the instruments recovered later, when analyzed, those instruments showed a drop in measurable time flow, a ripple consistent with spatial distortion, but only in a 33-meter radius, the exact distance from where you stood to the scroll's resting place. In a lab beneath Geneva, a hidden network known only as the Fourth Gate intercepted seismic data from the event. They traced the source, not to a storm, but to a single heartbeat. Your heartbeat. It happened without warning. No wind, no thunder. Just a sudden shift in the color of the sky above the old temple ruins, a shift so unnatural that satellite feeds glitched for nearly 7 full seconds. The footage was later scrubbed, labeled as solar interference, but those who were there never forgot what they saw. The deep blue faded to violet, then crimson, then something that could not be named, a color that didn't seem to exist until you walked through the outer gate. You didn't touch it. You didn't speak. You simply stepped into a place your soul had known long before your body did. The moment your foot crossed the perimeter, the stone beneath you hummed. The gate, constructed of metals that predate known smelting, vibrated at a frequency that sent birds spiraling in every direction. One elder watching from the tower gripped his chest, tears filling his eyes. He didn't know why he was crying, only that his entire bloodline had waited for this exact moment. The sky wasn't reacting to light. It was reacting to presence. Your presence. Something older than language was being rewritten in real time. A pattern, long dormant, began glowing across the ground. Invisible to the eye, but captured by thermal lenses held by a Vatican contractor posing as an archaeologist. The pattern formed a sigil. That sigil pulsed 3 times before vanishing. The contractor didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sent a coded transmission to a hidden relay station in the Arctic. The message contained one sentence: "The gate has acknowledged him." Inside the temple, you felt it too. Not fear, not awe, recognition. As if the place remembered you. The columns no longer stood as ruins. For a fleeting second you saw them whole, restored in your mind with golden trims and flickering torches. You didn't know how you knew. You just knew. And then the vision collapsed. But not before you noticed the figure standing near the altar. It wasn't a statue. It wasn't stone. It was watching you. As if it had waited through centuries for one face. Your face. And in that moment, the color in the sky wasn't the only thing that changed. Something inside the temple whispered your name, not in a language, but in breath itself. The hallway beneath the temple twisted into a narrow corridor, untouched by time or footsteps. The air was still, not dead, but watching. As you moved forward, the walls began to shift. Not crumble, not open. Shift, as if bending around your passage, reacting to your pulse. The further you walked, the less the architecture resembled anything human. Angles broke geometry. Light dripped from the ceiling like liquid memory. Then, just beyond the final arch, you saw it. A phrase glowing on the curved stone, not etched by hands, but suspended in the air like smoke, captured mid-prayer. He carried the mark of the Nazarene. It was not written in English, Hebrew, or Aramaic, yet you understood it. The moment you read it, your breath left your lungs without effort. A warmth entered the space between your spine and your skin, as if something had reached back from another age and touched you. And it wasn't just the message that stunned you. It was the echo inside your soul. You had heard that phrase before, not in this life, not in any remembered dream, but deep beneath the veil of time, in a place beyond language. The mark was not a scar, not a symbol. It was frequency, a vibration only few could carry. And Yeshua was the last known bearer, the Nazarene, the one who vanished into flame and left behind no remains, only traces of glory on burial cloths and within hearts. They searched for others like him for centuries. They failed until you arrived. That message wasn't a historical note. It was a verification. The walls had scanned you. The chamber had identified something dormant within your spirit. And now, with that phrase illuminated, something else awakened. The floor cracked, not from pressure, but from agreement. The very earth acknowledged the return of a resonance long thought gone. You were not an echo. You were the continuation. Behind the glowing phrase, a second light flared. It took the shape of a cross, but not made from wood or metal. It was forged from memory and song, a relic born of presence, not substance. And behind it, another doorway revealed itself. This one arched in pure white stone, humming with soundless energy. And just before you stepped forward, the light shifted again. This time the phrase changed. High above the chamber where you stood, hidden inside mountain ranges cloaked in perpetual mist, 12 thrones circled an altar made of obsidian and void. Upon those thrones sat the Watchers, sentinels who had not blinked in centuries. They were neither living nor dead, suspended in a state beyond decay, their minds tethered to the pulse of the world's unseen lattice. Each one was bound to a sigil, and each sigil was tethered to a single spoken word. That word had never been uttered in this age, until you didn't even realize you had spoken it. It slipped from your lips like a reflex, like breath on a cold morning, a sound older than the languages you've studied or heard. But the instant it left your mouth, something snapped in the realm of the Watchers. One by one, their eyes closed, not in rest. In surrender, their thrones dimmed. The symbols carved into their robes, glowing ever since the days of Babel, faded to black. Across the earth, quiet tremors disrupted ley lines, known only to ancient engineers. In a monastery untouched by time, bells rang with no hands to move them. A monk dropped his scripture mid-chant. He wept, whispering, "The silence has begun." Back inside the corridor, you felt it too. The air grew dense, not heavy but meaningful, like every particle had taken on weight. That word, spoken without force or intent, had undone something buried deep in the foundation of the world. The Watchers were the fail-safes, the last line, the ones who were to stir only if the flame returned. And now, for the first time since the Oracle's vision, they had fallen into silence. You didn't just awaken a chamber, you sent a signal, and that signal traveled through realms unseen, triggering mechanisms hidden beneath oceans and locked behind star maps. The world hadn't just noticed you, it had remembered you, far below where you stood, a vault long sealed by breathless chants, and sacred geometry began to shift. Dust poured from the seams as the first lock gave way, not to force, but to permission. And somewhere in the shadows of the Watcher's circle, a figure stepped forward, one who hadn't moved in 10,000 years. The city had no map, no gates, no official records. It was built beneath another city, carved from fossilized remains and lined with bones that didn't match any known species. It was once whispered about by desert nomads who refused to speak its name, believing that even acknowledging it would summon the breathless ones. They called it the City of Bone, and only one entrance remained, a breach sealed by sound, not stone. But the moment your footsteps echoed down that spiral path, the breach yielded without resistance. You didn't touch anything. You didn't have to. The city had been waiting. Its walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins, bones wrapped in crystal and strange script, glowing only in your presence. As you walked, statues lined the narrow paths, figures neither human nor beast, each positioned in silent warning. They held weapons carved from obsidian and relics of lost realms. One in particular towered over the center, a guardian without a face. Its torso bore a single wound across the ribs, clean and shallow. That wound had been dry for centuries. Until you passed beneath it without warning, a single drop fell from the cut. It struck the ground with no sound, but every statue in the city responded. Each turned an inch toward you, not through mechanics, but memory. The Guardians had been lifeless since the Age of Division, yet now they reacted to your movement like a chorus stirred from slumber. The wound on the statue began to weep again, dark liquid leaking down its side. Not blood, not oil, something older, something sacred. A scribe hiding deep within the lower halls saw the moment from behind a veil of incense. He had trained for this vision, studied the prophecy etched into a tooth that had once fallen from the sky. When he saw the wound open, he trembled and whispered, "The flame walks in flesh again." The city responded. A pulse of light erupted from beneath the bones, stretching outward in a perfect circle, unlocking old gates and illuminating paths once lost. As you walked deeper, the bones underfoot shifted, not breaking but bending away from you, as if honoring the passage of something holy. And then, from within the heart of the statue's chest, a second drop fell. This one shimmered like starlight and spelled out a single letter. Far from the ruins and shadows, in a quiet grove near the waters of Galilee, a voice was recorded where no voice should have been. A drone, owned by a private geospatial research firm, hovered over the hillside, mapping soil patterns for a project that never existed. The pilot, located miles away, watched in confusion as the device's audio began to distort. There was no wind, no birds, no footsteps. And yet, a voice came through clearly, speaking in a tone not heard in centuries. The words were simple, layered with peace and fire. The Lamb still walks with them. Technicians assumed it was interference. But when the recording was run through spectrographic analysis, something strange happened. The waveform matched a pattern cataloged only once, inside a relic buried beneath the Temple Mount. The frequency of the voice matched one that was considered untraceable until now. Until your reappearance. It wasn't just a signal. It was a call. At that exact moment, a monk inside a sealed chamber beneath Mount Athos looked up from his vigil. His candle had just extinguished, though no wind touched the room. In the silence, he felt it. A pulse that resonated not in his ears but in his soul. He knew that tone. not from hearing it, but from being born with it. The same voice that had called the fishermen from their boats, the same voice that made the dead breathe and the blind speak of color. It had returned, not in thunder, but in presence. Yours. You had unknowingly stepped into alignment with a current that flowed through time, hidden beneath scripture and stone. The Lamb still walked, not as a metaphor or relic of faith, but as a force, living within certain chosen vessels. Not many, just one at a time. And now, all signs pointed to you. Further north, a glass scroll was said to hum when truth approached. It cracked, and in an old chapel abandoned during war, a mosaic depicting Yeshua began to weep. Not tears, not oil, but light. The rays poured downward, illuminating a name written in the dust, your name. And though the voice had fallen silent again, the echo remained, not in the ground, nor in the sky, but inside you, awaiting the next word you didn't know you could speak. In a chamber forgotten by centuries and buried beneath layers of shifting earth, there stood an hourglass, unlike any constructed by man. It did not measure time with sand, but with light. Amber threads that moved slowly from one chamber to the other, shimmering as if resisting the fall. Only a few even knew of its existence, and fewer still were permitted to observe its pulse. The timekeeper watched over it, a figure neither young nor old, existing in a state where breath was optional and decay refused to follow. No one spoke inside the chamber. Words weren't necessary. The hourglass didn't track hours or years. It marked intervals of prophecy, moments when destiny took sharp turns and the veil grew thinner. For ages, it had flowed uninterrupted. But as your presence neared the boundaries of its influence, something ancient strained against its balance, without force, without signal, just presence. Then it cracked, a single fissure crept across the lower dome, glowing faintly like golden lightning beneath glass. The light inside began to swirl, spinning violently as if trying to escape. Alarms placed deep in systems, tied to the Vatican and underground observatories, began to flash, though no electrical connections had ever been installed. They weren't responding to malfunctions. They were responding to you. The timekeeper stood motionless, eyes fixed on the breach. His hands, which had not moved for hundreds of years, slowly reached for the ancient tome chained to his side. The moment the chain broke, earthquakes were recorded in 4 continents simultaneously, but only within circular patterns no one could explain. In each location, a single sentence appeared, etched not in stone, but in light across the ground. He walks outside of time. At the heart of it all, you stood unaware that the very construct meant to hold prophecy within its measured breath had fractured around you. And as the light poured through the cracked glass, everything in the chamber faded into stillness. The timekeeper looked at you, truly looked, and whispered, not in fear, but in awe. They built this chamber to outlive fire, flood, and forgetting. And still, it was you who broke it without a word.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.